They said, "We're letting you go, effective immediately," like they were reading off a cue card in a school play they barely rehearsed. No eye contact, no pause. Just corporate autopilot with a side of attitude. And the wild part? It wasn't even HR saying it. It was him, the CEO's nephew. Day 3 in the building, day 1 in power. He didn't sit, didn't ask, didn't blink, just tapped the edge of my desk twice and said, "We need to move fast in this company. Old systems, old leadership, it's gotta go." Old leadership. That was me. 22 years in that building. I knew every contract clause, every investor handshake, every silent panic that ever hit that boardroom at 2 a.m. I was there when the company couldn't afford coffee filters, let alone interns with opinions. And now I'm old leadership? I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I stood up slow, straightened my blazer, and looked him dead in the eye. Not angry, not defensive, just calm. The kind of calm that makes people uncomfortable. I said, "You sure you want to do this right now?" He smirked, like he'd been waiting for that moment his whole life. "Yeah," he said, "I am very sure." "Of course you are, kid. Of course you are." I picked up my phone, slid it into my bag, and walked past him without another word. No begging, no arguing, no scene. Because here's the thing nobody told him. You don't fire someone who built the floor you're standing on. You just trigger what they left behind. And trust me, I left a lot behind. Now, before I tell you what happened in the next 3 hours, the kind of chaos that makes boardrooms go dead silent, do me a favor. If you've ever seen someone underestimate the quiet one, hit that like button. You already know where this is going. Because this wasn't a firing. This was a countdown. By the time I stepped into the elevator, my phone buzzed. Not a flood of messages, just one. From legal. Did he just sign it? I didn't reply. Didn't need to. They already knew. Everybody who mattered always knew before the noise started. I walked out of the building, past the glass doors I'd personally approved the vendor for, past the reception desk I redesigned during year 5 when we almost lost a major client over first impressions. Funny how memory works. Places remember you, even when people pretend not to. Outside, the air felt different. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just quiet, like the second before something breaks. I got into my car, sat there for a moment, then opened my email. Drafts. Folder named "In Case of Stupidity." Yeah, I name things exactly what they are. Inside it, a document I hadn't touched in years. Clause 11B. Emergency Governance Reversal. Not flashy, not famous, not something they teach in those overpriced MBA programs where confidence is louder than competence. But it was real. Signed, filed, locked, and waiting. I opened it, updated the timestamp, attached supporting documentation, and hit send. Recipients? Board, investors, external counsel, internal compliance. No drama, no all caps, just one subject line. Activation notice, effective immediately. That's it. No explanation, because people at that level, they don't need paragraphs. They need proof. Back upstairs, Mr. Nephew Energy was probably spinning in his chair, thinking he just made history. Probably drafting a LinkedIn post like, "Sometimes leadership means making tough decisions." Man, I can already see the hashtags. Disruption, next-gen leadership, no days off. Meanwhile, legal was already pulling files, compliance was already flagging activity, and the board? Oh, they were opening emails. Slowly, carefully. The way people open something that might change their life. Because here's what the kid didn't know. I never took bonuses, never chased titles. While everyone else was flexing job titles on business cards, I was negotiating equity. Percent by percent, deal by deal, quiet, consistent. By year 10, I wasn't just leadership, I was ownership, majority ownership. And that clause, it wasn't theoretical, it was surgical. If any non-equity executive terminated a senior operational authority without board vote, all power froze immediately. Authority reverted to the majority stakeholder, me. 3 hours. That's all it took. 3 hours between "you're fired" and "what did we just do?" By the time the boardroom filled up, nobody was smiling. No coffee, no side conversations. Just papers, silence, and tension thick enough to choke on. The CEO walked in last. Not the nephew, the actual CEO. Older, sharper, the kind of man who built something real, then slowly let comfort replace control. He looked around the room and said, "What's going on?" Legal didn't sugarcoat it. They triggered Clause 11B. He blinked. Once. Then again. Who? No one answered right away, because they all knew. He sat down slowly. "Tell me exactly what happened." And that's when it hit him. Not like a punch, like a realization. The slow, sinking kind. The kind that whispers, "You just let the wrong person play with the wrong lever." Meanwhile, back in his office, Mr. Next Gen Leadership tried to log in to the financial dashboard. Access denied. Tried to approve a contract. Blocked. Tried to send a company-wide message. Restricted. He frowned. Clicked again. Same result. Then his phone buzzed. One message. From an investor. "What did you do?" No emojis. No greetings. Just that. And suddenly, for the first time all day, he wasn't confident. He was confused. And confusion, in a power game, that's where things start falling apart. Because power isn't loud. It's not suits. It's not titles. It's not who gets the corner office. Power is quiet. It's in contracts, in signatures, in the fine print nobody reads until it's too late. And right then, it was already too late. Because I wasn't gone. I was just activated. And trust me, that building was about to remember exactly who I was. 3 hours. That's all it took for her champagne moment to start curdling. Not explode, not crash, just quietly go bad. And honestly, that's the kind of downfall that hits different. Not loud, not messy, just slow realization creeping in like, oh, I messed up. Bad. Upstairs, she was still playing CEO dress-up. Downstairs, the machine she didn't even know existed had already started turning. Legal didn't panic. That's the thing about people who've seen real disasters. They don't flinch. They document. Every email she sent, flagged. Every access request she made, logged. Every Slack message with that little smiley face she thought softened the blow, archived. Not because anyone was trying to get her, because the system was built to protect itself from people exactly like her. Meanwhile, I wasn't in the building. Didn't need to be. Power doesn't always sit in the office. Sometimes it sits in a quiet kitchen with a cup of black coffee, watching the clock tick toward consequences. I had already done my part. Clause triggered, documents filed, board notified. Now we let gravity do its thing. At 12:47 p.m., her first real crack showed. It started small. She tried to approve a budget shift, something minor, routine, the kind of thing she thought came with the title. Denied. She frowned. Clicked again. Denied. Okay, glitch, right? She refreshed the system. Still nothing. Then she tried accessing the executive dashboard, the one that shows projections, voting power, internal controls. Blank. Not error, not crash, just empty. like the system looked at her and said, "You don't belong here." That's when her posture changed, just slightly, but enough. At 1:33 p.m., she called IT, tried to sound casual. "Hey, quick thing, my access seems a little weird." The IT director didn't even spin his chair around. "Yeah," he said, calm as a Sunday morning, "that's above my clearance now." That word hit her harder than any warning. Now. Meaning something had already changed, and she wasn't part of it. She hung up, sat there, staring at the same screen she thought she owned an hour ago, and for the first time all day, she stopped typing. At 2:26 p.m., her husband texted, "You good? Heard things are tense." Not "great job," not "proud of you," not "you killed it," just tense. She didn't reply, because suddenly she wasn't so sure what she had actually done. At 2:40 p.m., legal walked past her office, didn't stop, didn't smile, didn't even acknowledge her. And if you've ever been in a corporate building, you know that's louder than yelling. Because legal doesn't ignore power, they ignore risk. And right now, she was starting to look like one. At 2:55 p.m., the first board member arrived. No announcement, no assistant, just walked straight past reception like he'd been called in for something serious. Then another, then another. By 2:10 p.m., the hallway outside the boardroom looked like a quiet storm. No chatter, no jokes, just people who knew exactly what Clause 17C meant and wished they didn't. She noticed. Of course she did. You can't ignore that kind of shift. So she grabbed her portfolio, fixed her hair, straightened her blazer, and told herself the same lie people always tell in moments like this. I'm in control. At 2:32 p.m., she tried one last thing. Opened her LinkedIn draft again. Read the line, "Leadership means making hard decisions." Her cursor blinked at the end. Waiting. Daring her. She hovered over post, and then she closed the laptop. Didn't delete it, just couldn't press send. Because deep down, something in her gut was already screaming, "You don't even know what you just walked into." At 2:58 p.m., she stood outside the boardroom doors, hand on the handle, breathing just a little too fast, still trying to hold on to that confidence, that image, that version of herself she walked in with this morning, the one who thought she was untouchable. She opened the door and stepped into a room that didn't recognize her anymore. No one greeted her, no one smiled, no one stood. That head seat she had mentally claimed, occupied. Not physically, but you could feel it, like someone else already owned the air around it. She walked in anyway, because what else do you do when you've gone too far to turn back? You commit, even when your instincts are begging you not to. "Good afternoon," she said, voice steady, almost impressive if you didn't know better. No one answered. She moved toward the head chair, and that's when the board chair finally spoke. Calm, sharp, final. "You can sit, just not there." That sentence? That's when it hit her. Not fully, not yet, but enough to crack the illusion. "Excuse me?" she said. Legal didn't even look up from the file. "Your authority has been suspended pending shareholder review." Flat, clinical, like reading a weather report. Suspended. Not questioned, not discussed. Suspended. She laughed, just a little. The kind of laugh people do when reality doesn't match the script in their head. "That doesn't make sense," she said. "I made the call this morning." "Exactly," legal replied. And just like that, the room shifted. Because now she wasn't the one making decisions. She was the decision. She looked at her husband. Nothing. Looked at the founder. Nothing. Looked around the room for support, for validation, for someone to say, "Hey, wait, let's slow down." But nobody did, because nobody could. Because the moment she signed that termination, she didn't just fire me, she triggered something none of them could stop. And that's when she asked the question, the one that always comes too late. Who did this? Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Final. Then the chair leaned back, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "The person you thought you got rid of." And just like that, everything she built in her head that morning collapsed. But here's the thing. That wasn't the end. That wasn't even the worst part. Because the door hadn't opened yet. And when it did, when I walked in, that's when she learned the difference between holding a title and holding power. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't just a story about getting fired. It's about what happens when someone confuses access with authority. So don't go anywhere. At exactly 3 p.m., the door opened. No dramatic slam, no announcement, just a quiet click. But somehow, every single person in that room felt it. Like the temperature dropped a few degrees and the air got heavier. I walked in like I never left. Same black suit, same pace, same expression. No rush, no nerves, no need. Because here's the truth nobody says out loud. When you actually hold power, you don't chase the room. The room adjusts to you. I didn't look at her first. Didn't need to. I could feel her. That stiff posture, that forced composure, that internal spiral she was trying so hard to hide. I've seen it before, plenty of times, usually right before reality lands. I walked straight to the head of the table, the seat she almost took, the one she thought came with the title. I didn't ask permission, didn't check for approval, just placed my folder down, opened it, and spoke. As majority shareholder, I'm initiating a full executive review under Clause 17C. Calm, clear, final. No one interrupted, because there was nothing to interrupt. That wasn't a suggestion. That was a switch flipping. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. Her hand tightened around her pen, just slightly. That was the moment it clicked for her. Not fully, but enough. Enough to realize this wasn't some internal disagreement. This wasn't office politics. This was ownership. Legal nodded. Board chair adjusted his glasses. Someone across the table let out a breath they didn't know they were holding. And just like that, the meeting started. Without her. Motion to suspend all unauthorized executive actions within the last 48 hours, legal said. Seconded, the chair replied. Votes went up, one by one. No hesitation, no debate, no speeches. Because when the paperwork is that clean, you don't argue, you comply. Motion passes. Just like that. Her decisions? Gone. Her authority? Gone. Her position? Never really existed in the first place. That's when she finally spoke, voice thinner now, less confident, more human. This is insane. You're overreacting. I turned to her, finally, first time since I walked in, and I didn't raise my voice, didn't argue, didn't attack. I just asked one question. Did you read the agreement before you made your move? Silence. That silence, that was the answer. Because that's the difference. She acted on confidence. I acted on contracts. The founder finally looked up. And man, I've known that man for 2 decades. Seen him close deals worth millions without blinking. Seen him shut down rooms full of sharks. But right then, he looked tired. Not physically, strategically. Like he just realized the game he thought he was playing was never his. "You could have warned us," he said quietly. I shook my head. "No," I said. "You could have listened." That hit. Because he knew. Deep down, he knew. This wasn't sudden. This wasn't revenge. This was built. Slowly, carefully, over years of watching people confuse proximity with power. I slid 2 documents across the table, one to him, one staying in front of me. "Option 1, I said. "You buy me out." His eyebrows lifted. Yeah, he wasn't expecting that. "Full stake, clean exit. You keep the company, on paper." Pause. 10 times valuation. The room shifted again, because now we weren't talking about control, we were talking about cost. "Option 2, I continued, "I stay. Simple. No fluff, no pitch. And everything changes." No one spoke, because they didn't need more explanation. They already knew what that meant. Audits, restructuring, no more family appointments, no more favor hires, no more shortcuts dressed up as leadership. The founder leaned back, ran a hand over his face, looked at the 2 papers like they were written in 2 different languages. "That's not fair," the nephew muttered from the side. First time he spoke since I walked in. I looked at him, really looked at him this time, and honestly, there wasn't anger there, just clarity. "I fired you," I said. "You just didn't realize what came with that decision." He swallowed, didn't respond, because now he was finally understanding something no one had ever taught him. Power doesn't come with the job, it comes with the risk. The room went quiet again, not awkward, not tense, just settled, like the outcome was already decided. The founder finally spoke, voice low, careful. "How long do I have?" 24 hours, I said. He nodded slowly, picked up the buyout paper, folded it once, precise, controlled, but his hands, they weren't as steady as they used to be. Meeting adjourned. No applause, no speeches, just chairs sliding back and people walking out like they'd just witnessed something they'd be thinking about for a long time. The next morning, everything changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, just completely. At 8:59 a.m., an email went out from the founder. Short, clean. "I'm stepping down, effective immediately." No explanation, no defense, just gone. At 9:02 a.m., security walked the nephew out. No scene, no argument, just quiet footsteps and a badge that didn't work anymore. At 9:15 a.m., the board reconvened. New structure, new leadership, no family titles, no shortcuts, just people who actually knew what they were doing. And me, I walked back into the building the same way I left, calm, steady, unbothered. Receptionist looked up, smiled. "Welcome back." I nodded. "Wasn't gone," I said. Because I wasn't. Not really. I walked past the same hallway, same offices, same walls that had seen everything. But this time, they didn't look away. They moved, made space, opened doors. Not out of fear, out of understanding. Because now they knew the quiet ones, the ones who don't fight for attention, the ones who don't need to prove anything, yeah, those are the ones you should never underestimate. I stopped at the front desk, set my folder down, looked at the receptionist, and said, "I'll need a new badge." She smiled. "What kind?" I thought about it for a second, then said, "One that actually works." And just like that, everything was exactly how it was supposed to be. So here's the takeaway. Listen close, because this is where most people get it wrong. Titles can be given, access can be granted, authority can be borrowed, but real power? That's built, protected, and written in places nobody bothers to read. And if you ever find yourself in a room where someone thinks they can erase you with a sentence, let them. Sometimes the fastest way to win is to let them make the first mistake. If this hit different, you already know what to do. Drop a like, subscribe, and stick around, because trust me, stories like this, they happen way more than people think.